sorry for the delay. I was having a few technical difficulties, but thank you for waiting. And I hope you all had a really nice Thanksgiving holiday. And we are officially into the holiday season. And so we are going to be talking about how to cope with stress around the holidays because it can be a really busy time of year. And we'll talk about why this time of year might be a little bit more stressful than others, just in terms of everything we have to do and what it can bring up emotionally. We'll also talk about healthy eating around the holidays, some practical tips you can use daily and at your celebrations to stay on track with the way that you want to be eating and to avoid overindulging and the possibility of not feeling so great after that. Weight gain as well, I know, is a concern for a lot of people around this time of year, and that can add to stress. So let's talk about that a little bit more. So why is it this time of year that we are so stressed? So we are our calendars can just be jam packed this time of year. We're out shopping for gifts. We might be hosting parties or attending parties. So with that comes cleaning, decorating, prepping the house for guests. And on top of that, we want everything to go really well. We want people to have perfect gifts, and we want to have really pretty decorations, and we want to have delicious meals and spreads for all of our loved ones. And so there's some added pressure there that we want everything to go really well and really perfect, which I can understand. And then on top of that, we might be traveling to see family, so there's the stress of traveling, whether you're driving or you're flying, making your flights, making sure that everything goes as planned there. And then with family comes certain family dynamics that can be interesting. And it can there's the potential to have touchy conversations, maybe around politics, religion, finances, whether you're single or you're married, whether you have kids or you don't have kids, and those can be challenging at times. The holidays often will revolve around food as well, and so there can be stress from concern over whether you're going to eat too much, you're going to overindulge, whether you're going to feel like crap after you eat, and whether you're just going to kind of fall off of the healthy habits that you work so hard to try to maintain. So some fear and some stress around there. And then I know that this is true for me, but there's also a lot more spending that goes along this time of year. So again, gifts, decorations, traveling, all that. So there's a potential for financial concerns and stress around that. And then another thing to note is, if you have experienced a trauma or a loss around the holidays, it can bring up a lot of emotions, and that can be a potential area of stress as well. So let's talk about strategies on how to reduce and cope with our stress over the holidays. So my first recommendation is to try to maintain the healthy habits that you already have. And it doesn't have to look perfect, but you just want to stay mindful. So focus on, not letting the holidays become a free-for-all, because overindulgence will add to more stress and possibly feelings of guilt. So focus on eating whole foods. So as a reminder, whole foods are foods in their natural state, like not processed or maybe very minimally processed. Keep your kitchen stocked with a lot of fresh veggies. It can be even frozen veggies, that's fine. Good quality sources of lean protein, healthy fats like avocado, olive oil. Try having some things that are really quick and easy to prep, so that you don't feel like you have to spend a lot of time cooking. So some quick and easy ideas would be like turkey lettuce wraps, or like a tuna salad with almond crackers or grain-free bread. That would be really good to, have a snack before a party or a social event. That way you're not going into it hungry, and you're not kind of like mindlessly snacking on some of the foods available there. Um, in terms of maintaining your regular habits, another thing that you can do is just be really mindful of getting enough sleep. So, the better you're, well rested, the more you're going to be able to enjoy the holidays. And I know it can be tempting at times. You might have friends in town or a party you want to stay at longer and you want to stay up later. So one recommendation I have for you is to try to go to bed an hour within your normal time so that you still get some extra time to spend with friends and family or wrapping or doing whatever. But for the most part, you're trying to stay consistent with your sleep schedule. And then in terms of maintaining your healthy habits, just you want to also stay active. So you can have some flexibility here with staying active. It doesn't have to be so regimented if that's what you're used to. But let's say, for example, like I know there's certain days of the week I have more time for physical activity. And so for me, it's like I'm committed to doing something that day that's physically active. But I also will check in with myself that day to see where my energy level is at. So like maybe depending on how I feel, I do a yoga session that's like more intense, or I do one that's more gentle. Or if I don't feel like being inside, I'll go for a bike ride and move my body that way. So allow yourself some flexibility within the routine that you already have set up for yourself. All right. My next tip is to ask for help and delegate. So we may be accustomed to wanting to do everything ourselves. This is particularly true for women. The American Psychological Association asserts that holiday stress disproportionately affects women more than it does men, because women typically take on the burden of doing all the shopping, decorating, cooking, and whatnot. So my tip for you is to delegate those tasks out. If you are hosting a party, maybe you consider making it a potluck, or at least asking a few people to bring certain dishes. Or if you're decorating the house, getting the whole family involved and having them help you with that. Okay, and next tip, and I love talking about stress because it does really come down to mindfulness practices. And so this one is one good for this time of year, but it's good for any time of year, and it's one that we can all practice. So that's practicing saying no. Oftentimes we go into autopilot and someone will ask us, do you want to go do this, or can you do this for me and help me with that? And it's just like an automatic yes. I know that I'm really guilty of that. And then after we say yes, we're kind of like why did I commit to that? Because when you think of it this way, when you say yes to something, you say no to something else. Like that's your time, right? So you want to say yes to the things that are going to bring you pleasure, and I understand wanting to help other people too. And so but just keep that in mind. Your time is precious, so say yes to the things that you really want to say yes to. And what really helps is, like, before you answer someone, you take a slight pause and you ask yourself, is this something I really want to do? And then you can answer from that point of like intention. If you don't know right then and there, that's fine. Just be like, oh, maybe, let me think about it, or let me get back to you. And then get back to them when you figure it out. And that's fine too. Okay. Next tip I have for you is to let go of perfection. So, we want everything to go well with the holidays. We want them to be, if you have certain traditions, you want them to be living up to those types of expectations. But, try to let that go, because perfection isn't realistic, and we'll drive ourselves crazy trying to find those perfect presents and putting up like the perfect decorations and making like the best cookies on the block. it's just going to set us up for disappointment. So I would just say, let go of perfection and sometimes accept that, like, getting it done is going to be just as good as being perfect at it or not doing it at all. Um, Another concern is, finances around the holidays and it being a stressful time in regards to that. So my recommendation is to take some time before you get out and really start your holiday shopping to figure out how much that you can allocate to presents and things like that, who you're going to get gifts for, how much for each one, and then really work to stick towards that budget so you work within your means. You can discuss your spending limits with friends and family and make sure everyone's on the same page. Other things that you can do that would be budget friendly but really thoughtful are, make homemade gifts. If you are into arts and crafts and things like that, you can craft something or you can bake something. What can be really touching too is using your words. So letting someone know, how much you appreciate them or how much you love them through a heartfelt card or a poem or whatever it is that however you want to express yourself in that way. But a lot of times that can be so much more memorable than like a material gift. And then, or you can also let friends and family know that you're not interested in giving gifts this year and that you really just want to focus on spending time together. So honor yourself in that process and what's going to work best for you. And just communicate with your family and see if you can find, or friends, family, whatever, and see if you can find a middle ground there. And my next tip for you is to acknowledge your feelings during this time of year. So, and again, these tips can really apply to any time of year, but a lot of times if we have negative emotions come up, like for example, if you are single this time of year or if you've lost a family member and you're feeling lonely, we have those feelings of loneliness come up and then we try like our best to kind of resist them or to push them away. I would encourage the opposite. So embrace those feelings. You can tell to yourself as things come up, like, okay, what is it that I'm feeling right now? Am I lonely? Am I sad? And give it a name. And then something that I do, so I just say, okay, like, I'm lonely and it's okay to feel lonely. Like, I'm human, and it's not like I feel like that every day or it's just like this moment right now. I'm going to acknowledge that and give myself a little break for feeling that way. And then you just allow that emotion to be processed so that you can let it go. And, we put this pressure on ourselves, I think, because it's like this time of year that we feel like we should be happy or, that we should be enjoying it more. But if you aren't, that's okay. I mean, things happen and it could be triggering. So just allow yourself to feel whatever you're going to feel and acknowledge it so you can process it accordingly. This one is a good one too. So you're going to try to set aside differences and try not to take things personally. As we spend time with family members who maybe we don't see super often, there can be a tendency to, again, have certain like touchy conversations. And so you gotta remember that what people do and say is not, most of the times, is not about you. Whatever someone does or says to you or about you is really a projection of their own perspective. We all have our own perspectives, and so you got to kind of keep that in mind. If someone says something to you that rubs you the wrong way, like um, get curious about it. You can be like, okay, is there some truth to that? And you can decide to talk about it a little bit more with that part that you resonate with. Or if it doesn't resonate with you at all, then you can just choose to kind of like let it go and not let it bring you down. And I know that this time of year we can also be in a rush, and so like just today I had someone cut me off twice on the road. And yes, it's annoying, and I will say that, but at the same time, I, I have a choice there, right? I can either choose to let it bother me or not. And so, when someone cuts you off or something like that, something that you can keep in mind that I think an old meditation teacher told me is just, imagine they're like a tumbleweed. Like, I'm on the road, I'm driving, someone cuts me off, and they're just like a tumbleweed that I'm just kind of watching and letting go, and it doesn't bother me at all. It just is what it is, right? And that can apply to a lot of different scenarios. And you can find a metaphor that works for you, but again, it's just you have the choice to let it bug you and to consume energy and time towards that, or you can choose to not focus your energy on something else. Okay. All right. Let's see. Okay, so those are my tips for coping with stress around the holidays. Something else that you want to consider is um, when you are stressed, it depletes your minerals. And so physiologically, you may benefit from a mineral like supplement. Again, make sure that you are being really mindful with your foods, eating whole foods, getting a lot of nutrition there. But if you're curious about taking like a mineral supplement, one of our go-to's is it's called Mintran. It's a whole food supplement from Standard Process, and I think it's mostly made from kelp, with some other whole food ingredients as well. But that will help to restore your body's sufficient amount of minerals. Okay, so let's get into holiday nutrition tips. And these are going to help you to reduce or really be mindful of your sugar intake. It's also going to have you be mindful of overindulging, and then that with keeping in mind of like weight and whatnot. Okay. So, I recommend sticking to your normal eating times as best you can. That's going to keep your blood sugar steady. Let's say, for example, you are having a holiday lunch and that lunch isn't until 2 o'clock, but you usually eat lunch at 12. So, what I would do is I would have a small snack at 12, and then when 2 comes around, you still can enjoy that meal. Maybe you even eat a little bit less of it though, because you're already a little bit full from your snack, and then again, your blood sugar is going to stay regulated. Let I would highly advise just, a lot of times I'll hear, well, I'm just not going to eat until that meal, whether it's at 2 or at 5 or at 6 or whatnot, so I can kind of save up for that. I would highly discourage that. Again, you're going to go from it's going to spike your blood sugar. You're going to be really, really hungry. There's going to be a tendency to overeat, and then you're going to feel cruddy. Um, if you are invited to a holiday party, offer bringing a dish, and then that way you have at least one thing that is going to be um, in your wanting to eat, like in your way of eating, basically, that is going to be good for you, and then you can use that as a base. Don't go to parties hungry. Have a healthy snack before you go. Be really choosy with your foods too, because a lot of times with holiday parties, there's like a big spread of a lot of different options. So, what I would recommend is before you fill up your plate, do a scan of what's available, and then choose the things that you really want to eat, especially the stuff that you can't get any other time of year. Um, and go with that. Make sure when you're eating, start with your proteins and your veggies to curb your appetite. Be mindful of, excess carbs from things like bread and whatnot during your meal. And then as you're eating, you want to be mindful to eat until you're satisfied. You want to be eating till you're overstuffed and you get that kind of like icky, bloated like feeling that's going to linger for a while. So eat slowly and then just continue to check in with your fullness levels. And remember that there's always leftovers, and it takes at least 20 minutes for your brain to realize that you're full. So what might happen is like you finish your plate of food and then you can go on an autopilot and be like, oh, I want some seconds. But I would say pause, wait 10 minutes, recheck your appetite, see how hungry you are, and then if you want to get some seconds, go from there. If not, then you don't have to. But at least you're taking some time in between to make a conscious decision around it. I think when it comes to food, it's, just not giving into the food and just making mindless choices, but really being intentional. And if you want, like, say, for example, you want to have a dessert, then do it mindfully. Be like, okay, I want to have a dessert. I'm going to have this one. I'm going to have this much of it, as opposed to just kind of like going for whatever and having a free-for-all. Another thing that would help you is to avoid or limit alcohol. Alcohol turns to sugar quickly in the body, and it increases your appetite, and it diminishes your ability to control what you eat. It also messes with your sleep. So do your best to avoid or limit. And then when it comes to the parties, really just work on visiting the people and not the food. And so have your conversations away from like the appetizer platter or the buffet spread, because then you're going to be more inclined to kind of just like mindlessly snack on stuff. And then this next one is big too. So say no to food pushers politely. I know that during my Thanksgiving last week, this was something that came up very, very often for me. Like, oh yeah, fill your plate, have seconds, like try this, try that. And again, practice saying no, so you can be like, oh, like, I'm already full, thank you though, it looks great. And if they keep pushing, just be like, oh, I'm still full. And they're like, oh, it's really good, and be like, oh, okay, great, like more for you and more for everyone else. That's awesome. So you can be polite about it. You don't have to be rude or anything like that, but you put yourself first in those situations. Don't do it to appease anyone else. And I know that I know with a lot of this stuff it's like easier said than done, but we all, just practice. That's all. Okay, and then if things go awry, don't feel guilty. If you overindulge, you don't have to beat yourself up about it, but just make sure that your next meal is on the healthier side, that you incorporate some activity, you drink lots of water to help kind of flush out any toxins. And so those are my holiday tips to cope with stress and healthy holiday eating. So I hope that you got some takeaways that you can use. And I want to share with you a very special offer that we're having at Natural Healing Center for December only. So typically a consultation with me, the cost is $299 if you are a new client. That comes with 2 days worth of visits. So one day is doing a myriad of different tests. It takes about 2 hours, and we go through and we identify any type of stress on the body, whether that's chemical, metal, food sensitivities, pathogens, any organs that are in need of support. And we also find what would help in terms of a natural remedy to bring the body back into balance. So that can look like avoiding juicing certain foods, adding in certain foods, herbs, homeopathic formulas, whole food supplements. And so when you come back for that second visit, we go over a report with all of our recommendations, and that will be really good information for you to have, foods that you'll want to start to reduce or avoid. potential supplements that could really benefit you in healing and repairing your body. So for those two visits, typically the price is $299, but for this month only, it's going to be $100 off. So that price drops to $199. And like honestly, this sale doesn't happen very often. And so if you have been interested in coming in for initial consult, or if this sounds like a good idea for you, then I would encourage you to come in now. We're running this promotion until December 31st at midnight. If you have any questions, you can feel to reach out to us. The number's 714-549-4435. Thank you so much for tuning in to our Facebook Live tonight. I'm going to be coming at you next Thursday as well, and we're going to be talking about navigating the grocery store. So some of my tips for meal prepping, grocery trip planning, what to look out for, what to avoid at the grocery store, how to save money, how to read labels, all that kind of tricky stuff that marketing and gimmicks try to get you on. So I hope to see you then, and I hope to see you in person too, or virtual. We do offer virtual consults. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'll see you guys soon.